on August 15th, 1977, while you were probably dreaming about whatever people dreamed about in the 70s, disco balls perhaps, or gas prices, something happened in the darkness of an Ohio cornfield that would haunt astronomers for the next 5 decades. The Big Ear Radio Telescope, a metal giant the size of 3 football fields, was doing what it always did, listening, waiting, recording the cosmic static that fills the spaces between stars. Jerry Eman was tired that morning. He'd been volunteering at Ohio State University's radio observatory, one of those thankless jobs where you sift through endless computer printouts looking for patterns in the noise, row after row of numbers and letters, each representing a slice of sky, a moment in time, a frequency of radio waves, washing over Earth from the depths of space. Most volunteers lasted a few weeks before the tedium drove them away. Jerry had been at it for years. The printout from August 15th looked like all the others at first. Columns of 1s and 2s, the occasional 3 or 4 when some earthly interference leaked through. Background radiation from the birth of the universe mixed with satellite transmissions and microwave ovens. The universe is surprisingly noisy when you know how to listen. Jerry's eyes moved down the page with practiced efficiency, his red pen ready to mark anything unusual, though unusual in this context usually meant a new TV station or a passing airplane. Then he saw it. 6 characters that didn't belong. 6 EQUJ5. In the language of radio astronomy, this was a scream. The numbers and letters represented signal intensity, climbing from background noise, 1 through increasing strength, 2, 3, 4, until the computer ran out of single digits and switched to letters. E meant the signal was already 10 times stronger than anything natural should be at that frequency. Q pushed it into the realm of the extraordinary. U took it beyond anything the Big Ear had ever detected. And J was so intense the computer seemed to stutter in disbelief. Jerry's hand moved without conscious thought. The red pen circled those 6 characters, and before his scientific training could stop him, he wrote a single word in the margin. Wow. The exclamation mark was unprofessional. Graduate students don't write exclamation marks on data. They write notes about calibration errors and interference patterns. They write careful observations in passive voice. They don't write, wow, like a child seeing fireworks for the first time. 72 seconds. That's how long the signal lasted. In the time it takes to soft boil an egg, something had reached across the cosmos and tapped Earth on the shoulder. The Big Ear telescope, with its massive reflector frozen at one angle, relied on Earth's rotation to sweep across the sky. Any continuous signal should appear for exactly 72 seconds as it passed through the telescope's field of view. This signal had followed that pattern perfectly, rising, peaking at that impossible U, then fading back into the cosmic whisper. The frequency made Jerry's hands shake slightly as he double-checked it. 1420.356 megahertz, the hydrogen line, the one frequency every SETI researcher had memorized like a prayer. Hydrogen, the simplest element, the building block of stars, vibrates at this exact frequency throughout the universe. It's the cosmic equivalent of middle C, a universal tuning fork that any technologically capable civilization would recognize. If you wanted to send a message across the galaxy, this is the frequency you'd choose. If you wanted to be heard above the cosmic noise, this is where you'd shout. Jerry reached for the phone with fingers that felt disconnected from his body. John Krause answered on the 3rd ring, his voice thick with sleep and coffee deprivation. Jerry tried to keep his voice steady as he explained what he'd found. Tried to sound like a professional scientist reporting an anomaly rather than a man who might have just discovered proof that we're not alone. The pause on the other end stretched long enough for Jerry to wonder if the connection had dropped. Then, "I'll be right there." 20 minutes later, Kraus burst through the door like a man half his age, his shirt buttoned wrong and his hair still fighting with gravity. Together they went through everything: equipment logs, normal, weather data, clear, satellite positions, nothing in that part of sky, known interference sources, none that matched. They turned to the second feed horn's data, holding their breath. Big Ear had 2 feed horns separated by just enough distance that any continuous signal should appear twice, 72 seconds apart. The first horn had caught the signal perfectly. The second horn showed nothing, just the usual cosmic static, as if the universe had held its breath for exactly 1 rotation and then resumed its ancient murmur. The implications made the room feel smaller. Either the signal had stopped transmitting in those 72 seconds between the horns, or it was beamed so narrowly that only 1 horn caught it. Either possibility suggested something deliberate, something aimed, something that knew exactly when to speak and when to fall silent. That night, Big Ear stared at the same patch of sky with the patience of a hunter who's seen prey disappear into tall grass. The telescope couldn't move. It was a massive metal ear pressed against the cosmos, waiting for whispers. The coordinates were burned into everyone's mind. Right ascension 19 hours, 25 minutes, 31 seconds. Declination minus 26 degrees, 57 minutes. A cosmic address that had been meaningless 24 hours ago and now felt like the most important location in the universe. John Kraus didn't go home. He sat in the control room, nursing coffee that had transcended bitterness and achieved something close to malevolence. Every few minutes he checked the receivers, fine-tune the amplifiers, adjust settings that didn't need adjusting. It was like fidgeting with a radio dial, hoping to catch a station that had gone off the air. The morning shift arrived to find him still there, eyes red-rimmed, surrounded by empty coffee cups arranged like a scale model of Stonehenge. "Anything?" they asked. He just shook his head and gestured at the fresh printouts. Line after line of 1s and 2s. The universe had returned to its regularly scheduled programming of random noise. Word spread through the astronomy community like wildfire in a drought. Phone lines buzzed with conversations that would have sounded insane to anyone outside the field. "No, I'm serious. 30 times background noise. At the hydrogen line. Yes, exactly where we predicted. No, it didn't repeat." Within 48 hours, radio telescopes around the world were adjusting their schedules. The Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, with its massive dish nestled in a natural bowl, swung its receivers towards Sagittarius. The Parkes telescope in Australia prepared to catch the signal location when it rose in the southern sky. Jodrell Bank in England cleared observation time usually reserved for pulsar studies. It was like watching every searchlight in the world suddenly point at the same spot in the sky. Except these searchlights were listening rather than looking, straining to hear a whisper that had already faded. Bob Dixon, Big Ear's program director, implemented what he called the WOW protocols, though never in official documents. They expanded the frequency search, thinking perhaps the signal had drifted like a radio station in a distant city. They varied observation times, considering possibilities that made seasoned astronomers feel like they were writing science fiction. Maybe it broadcast on a schedule. Every 24 hours, every 7.3 hours to match some alien planet's rotation, every 17 days to commemorate some cosmic holiday. The math was sobering enough to drive anyone to drink. If the signal repeated every 24 hours, they had decent odds of catching it within a week. Every week meant months of observation for a good chance. Every month pushed the timeline into years. Every year, well, careers were shorter than the observation time needed to rule out annual broadcasts. The silence stretched like taffy. Days became weeks. The initial excitement curdled into something between determination and desperation. graduate students who'd rushed to join the search began to understand why SETI researchers developed thousand-yard stares and dark senses of humour. Theories multiplied like mushrooms after rain. The conservative ones involved satellites and classified military experiments. The moderate ones suggested natural phenomena behaving in unexpected ways. The wild ones involved civilizations broadcasting across the gulf between stars, either as a beacon or as the cosmic equivalent of a death cry. Each theory had problems. Satellites move in predictable orbits. They don't appear once and vanish. Natural phenomena follow physical laws. They don't typically produce narrow-band signals at exactly the frequency SETI had been watching. And alien civilizations, well, if they were broadcasting, why stop after 72 seconds? The most chilling theory was also the simplest. They'd caught the edge of something, like hearing one note from a symphony playing in a distant concert hall as you passed an open door. The signal hadn't started for Earth's benefit. It had been going for who knows how long, and Big Ear had simply wandered through its path at exactly the right moment. But if that was true, the beam was narrow, impossibly narrow, aimed somewhere specific, and Earth had passed through it like a ship crossing a lighthouse beam in fog, there and gone before anyone could triangulate its source. Other observatories reported their failures with the grim efficiency of doctors reporting unsuccessful surgeries. Arecibo, nothing. Parkes, nothing. Jodrell, Bank, nothing. Each non-detection felt like a door closing. Another possibility eliminated. Another piece of evidence that whatever had touched Earth's shoulder in the darkness had no interest in making contact again. The coordinates achieved a kind of infamy. RA 19 hours, 25 minutes, 31 seconds. December minus 26 degrees, 57 minutes. Astronomers could recite them like a mantra, a cosmic zip code for disappointment. Some took to calling it the most watched patch of nothing in the universe. Others just called it the spot, as if naming it more specifically might jinx any chance of the signal returning. But still, they watched, because the alternative, accepting that humanity had missed its one chance at confirmation, was too bitter to swallow. Somewhere in that patch of sky, among the distant stars of Sagittarius, something had happened. Something had spoken, and until they knew what or why, they would keep listening to the silence, hoping for another wow. Robert Gray was the kind of man who built a radio telescope in his backyard. Not toys or a hobbyist's weekend project, but a legitimate scientific instrument cobbled together from surplus parts and obsession. His neighbours in Chicago thought he was tracking satellites or maybe trying to steal cable TV. They had no idea he was hunting for a ghost that had whispered once in 1977 and then vanished into the cosmic dark. Gray wasn't a professional astronomer. He was a data analyst who'd read about the wow signal and felt something shift in his chest. The same feeling you get when you hear a door slam in an empty house. He couldn't let it go. While other people collected stamps or restored classic cars, Gray collected radio waves from a patch of sky that had gone silent. His homemade telescope was ugly as sin, but sensitive enough to hear a cell phone transmitting from Mars. Every clear night, he'd aim it at those coordinates. RA, 19 hours, 25 minutes, 31 seconds, deck minus 26 degrees, 57 minutes, and listen. His wife learned to sleep through the hum of equipment and the occasional curse when airplanes flew through his field of view. The professionals, meanwhile, were bringing out the big guns. The very large array in New Mexico looked like a scene from a science fiction movie. 27 white dishes spread across the desert, like enormous flowers tracking the sun. Each dish was 25 meters across. Working together, they could detect signals billions of times fainter than what Big Ear could see. They could hear a whisper from across the galaxy. In 1995 and 1996, Gray convinced the VLA operators to give him telescope time. Not easy when you're competing with researchers studying black holes and mapping dark matter. But the wow signal had achieved legendary status by then. It was astronomy's version of Bigfoot. Probably nonsense, but what if it wasn't? The VLA stared at the wow coordinates for hours. Its computers processed millions of channels simultaneously, searching for any hint of artificial intelligence. The data poured in like a waterfall of numbers, each one precisely measured and categorized. They found pulsars spinning like cosmic lighthouses. They detected hydrogen clouds drifting between stars. They catalogued distant galaxies and measured the background radiation from the Big Bang itself. They found everything except what they were looking for. Gray published his results with the kind of methodical detail that makes for terrible party conversation, but excellent science. Power levels, nothing above noise. Frequency analysis, no narrowband signals. Statistical significance, 0. The spot where humanity's best candidate for alien contact had originated showed nothing more interesting than the average piece of empty space. But here's what really got under astronomers' skin. The technical analysis of the original signal kept getting more impressive the closer they looked. The wow signal wasn't just strong, it was perfectly configured for interstellar communication. The frequency was offset from the hydrogen line by just enough to account for Earth's motion through space. The bandwidth was narrow enough to indicate artificial origin, but wide enough to carry information. The power level suggested a transmitter of staggering capability. Calculating backwards from the received signal strength, physicists estimated the transmitter power. The numbers were sobering. To produce that signal intensity at interstellar distances would require either an omnidirectional beacon powered by multiple nuclear reactors or a focused beam aimed precisely at Earth. The first option seemed wasteful for any civilization. The second option raised uncomfortable questions about why Earth was being targeted. The SETI Institute, founded in 1984, made the wow signal their white whale. They developed new search strategies based on its characteristics. Paul Horowitz at Harvard built custom receivers that could monitor 8.4 million channels simultaneously. He called it Project META, funded partly by Steven Spielberg, who understood the dramatic potential of first contact better than most. Meta detected several interesting signals over its operational life. Each one sent hearts racing and fingers flying over keyboards. But when they looked closer, the signals always revealed their mundane origins. Military radar bouncing off the moon, microwave ovens in nearby buildings, GPS satellites bleeding into the wrong frequency. Each false alarm was meticulously investigated and catalogued, building a library of what alien signals don't look like. The psychological toll on researchers was real, but rarely discussed. Imagine spending years of your life staring at noise, knowing that hidden somewhere in that static might be proof that we're not alone. Graduate students would join projects full of enthusiasm, certain they'd be the one to make the discovery. They'd leave years later with PhDs in signal processing and a 1,000-yard stare. Some researchers developed what they privately called wow syndrome, the tendency to see patterns in random noise, to get excited about statistical fluctuations that meant nothing. The human brain is designed to find patterns. It's what kept our ancestors alive. But when you're searching for alien signals, that pattern recognition becomes a liability. Every spike could be contact. Every anomaly might be the big one. The lack of confirmation began to take on an almost mythological quality. How could a signal that clear, that perfect, appear once and never again? It violated the basic principle of science, reproducibility. Some researchers started to wonder if Jerry Amon had somehow misread the data, if the computer had glitched in exactly the right way to fool everyone. But the evidence was solid. Multiple independent analyses confirmed the signal's characteristics. The printout was real, the equipment was functioning normally, the signal came from space. Something had transmitted at 1420 MHz from the direction of Sagittarius, with enough power to cross interstellar distances. Once, by the turn of the millennium, the WOW signal had transcended science to become culture. It appeared in X-Files episodes and Arthur C. Clarke novels. Musicians named albums after it. Conspiracy theorists built elaborate narratives around it. The signal had become a mirror. Everyone saw in it what they wanted to see. But for the astronomers still searching, still listening to cosmic silence night after night, the WOW signal remained what it had always been. A question mark written in radio waves, a cosmic joke with no punchline, a reminder that the universe was under no obligation to satisfy human curiosity. In 2015, Antonio Paris was teaching astronomy at St. Petersburg College when he noticed something everyone had missed. 2 comets, 266P/Christensen and 335P/Gibbs, had been passing through the vicinity of Chi Sagittarii in August 1977. Nobody had known because the comets hadn't been discovered yet. They were dark, quiet visitors that left no calling cards. Paris felt the excitement that comes with solving a puzzle everyone else has given up on. Comets carry clouds of hydrogen that could theoretically emit at 1420 MHz. When heated by the sun, this hydrogen might create a natural master effect, like a laser but for microwaves. It was elegant, it was plausible, it would explain everything. When comet 266P/Christensen returned to the same region in 2017, Paris was ready. He'd crowdfunded a small radio telescope and assembled a team of volunteers. They tracked the comet for months, measuring its radio emissions at the hydrogen frequency. The media loved it. Mystery of WOW, signal finally solved, the headlines proclaimed. Except it wasn't solved. The comet did emit at the hydrogen frequency. Sort of. The signal was weak, spread across multiple channels. Nothing like the focused intensity of the WOW signal. It was like comparing a whisper to a shout, a candle to a searchlight. Other astronomers pointed out that comets were well-studied objects in 1977. If they regularly produced such signals, radio astronomers would have noticed decades ago. The comet hypothesis joined the graveyard of failed explanations. Each debunked theory made the original signal seem more anomalous. It was like a perfect crime, where every suspect had an alibi. Satellites weren't in the right position. Aircraft couldn't produce that frequency. Natural masers didn't behave that way. Pulsars were too regular. Equipment malfunction was ruled out by the logs. Which left? What exactly? The philosophical implications kept scientists awake at night. It was exactly what they'd predicted an alien signal would look like. Narrow band, at the hydrogen frequency, from a point source in space, powerful enough to cross interstellar distances. It checked every box on their wish list. Some proposed the zoo hypothesis, the idea that Earth is a cosmic nature preserve and advanced civilizations deliberately avoid contact. The WOW signal might have been a mistake, a ranger's radio accidentally bleeding through the barriers. It sounds like science fiction until you remember that we do the same thing with isolated human tribes, maintaining no-contact policies to preserve their cultures. Others suggested we'd caught the tail end of something ancient. Maybe the signal had been broadcasting for millions of years, and we happened to catch its final transmission. A cosmic lighthouse whose bulb finally burned out, just as Earth swung into view. The timing would be impossibly coincidental, but the universe is old and vast enough to make even impossible coincidences inevitable. The dark forest hypothesis offered a chilling possibility. Maybe civilizations stay quiet because broadcasting your location invites destruction. The WOW signal could have been a civilization's last mistake, a shout into the darkness that attracted the wrong kind of attention. The 72-second duration might represent the time between transmission and annihilation. Modern technology made these speculations more vivid. Computer simulations showed how different types of transmitters would appear to Big Ear. Focused beams produced patterns remarkably similar to the WOW signal, but focusing a beam that narrowly across interstellar distances required either impossibly precise aim or prior knowledge of Earth's location. Jerry Amon, now in his 80s, became the reluctant guardian of the mystery. Journalists called him every August 15th, the anniversary of the detection. UFO enthusiasts sent him elaborate theories involving government cover-ups and alien bases on the dark side of the moon. He responded to what he could, always emphasizing the facts. We detected something. We don't know what it was. We never detected it again. In private moments, a man admitted the signal haunted him. Not in a supernatural way, but in the way unsolved puzzles haunt curious minds. He'd run through the possibilities thousands of times. Natural phenomena behaving oddly, artificial signals from a distant civilization, some unknown process that produces narrow band emissions under specific conditions. The most disturbing possibility was that the signal represented something beyond current human understanding. Not aliens necessarily, but some aspect of physics or cosmology that we haven't discovered yet. The universe is under no obligation to limit itself to phenomena we can explain. Dark matter and dark energy remind us that we don't understand 95% of the cosmos. What else might be out there, broadcasting in ways we can barely detect? The Allen Telescope Array, built specifically for SETI, has observed the WOW coordinates countless times with sensitivity that makes Big Ear look like a child's toy radio. Nothing. The Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia, one of the world's largest fully steerable radio dishes, has stared at that patch of sky for hours. Silence. The Chinese FAST telescope, the largest single-dish radio telescope on Earth, has added the coordinates to its target list. So far, just cosmic quiet. Each non-detection adds weight to the mystery. If the signal was real, and all evidence says it was, then something transmitted once and stopped, or transmitted so rarely that decades of observation haven't caught it again, or transmitted in a way that required conditions so specific they haven't repeated. The WOW signal has become a scientific ghost story, told around astronomy departments like a campfire tale. Except this ghost left physical evidence. 6 characters on a printout. A measurement that can't be explained away. A moment when the universe broke its silence just long enough to let us know we're not alone in wondering. The demolition crew arrived at Big Ear on a winter morning in 1998. They came with bulldozers and cutting torches, hard hats and work orders. They didn't know they were about to destroy the instrument that had heard humanity's clearest message from the stars. To them, it was just another job. Clear the land, make way for a golf course expansion. Delaware Country Club needed more room for its back 9. John Krause watched from the access road, too old and too tired to fight anymore. He'd spent years battling developers, writing letters to congressmen, trying to explain why this rusting collection of metal and wire mattered more than manicured greens and sand traps. Nobody listened. Land was valuable. Golf was profitable. Science was abstract. The cutting began at dawn. Acetylene torches sliced through the feed horns first, the same horns that had captured the WOW signal 21 years earlier. The metal screamed as it separated, a high-pitched protest that carried across the empty fields. Sparks showered down like falling stars, burning out before they hit the ground. By noon, the reflector was down. The massive aluminum mesh that had listened to the cosmos for 35 years lay crumpled like discarded wrapping paper. Bulldozers pushed the pieces into piles. A few astronomers had come to salvage what they could, a receiver here, an amplifier there. Museum pieces now. relics from the age when humanity still believed contact was imminent. The ground where Big Ear stood was valuable. Prime real estate, good drainage, easy access, pleasant views of the surrounding countryside. Perfect for golf. The developers had run the numbers. The land was worth $2 million. Big Ear's annual operating budget had been less than a tenth of that. The math was simple. The decision was inevitable. But the symbolism was devastating. The spot where humanity might have received its first message from another intelligence was being converted into a place where businessmen could chase small white balls into holes. The cosmos had whispered, and we'd responded by paving over the evidence. That night, Krauss wrote in his journal, "We spent decades listening to the universe. Today, we told it we're no longer interested." The wow! Signal achieved its final transformation that day. It went from being a scientific mystery to something larger, a monument to missed opportunities, a reminder that we'd rather improve our golf games than answer the fundamental question of our existence. Are we alone? The irony was sharp enough to cut. SETI researchers had always joked about the giggle factor, the embarrassment of searching for little green men, while serious scientists studied serious things. But the wow! Signal had been serious. It had been real. It had been exactly what they'd been looking for. And now, the instrument that detected it was scrap metal, sold by the pound. Some of the salvaged equipment ended up in the Ohio History Center. Visitors could see the actual feed horn that captured the signal, displayed behind glass like a holy relic. A small placard explained its significance in dry museum language. Most people walked past without stopping. It looked like junk, rusty metal, old technology. Nothing special, but for those who knew, it was heartbreaking. This wasn't just equipment. It was the ear that heard the universe speak. The precise arrangement of metal and electronics that happened to be listening at exactly the right frequency, at exactly the right time to catch something extraordinary. And now, it was a museum piece, as silent as the cosmos it once monitored. The destruction of Big Ear marked a turning point in SETI research. The field had always struggled for respect and funding. Now, it had lost one of its most famous instruments to a golf course. The message was clear. Earthly concerns trumped cosmic questions. Property values mattered more than potential contact. But the wow! Signal refused to die. It had transcended its physical origins to become an idea, a possibility, a question mark that no amount of development could erase. You could destroy the telescope, but you couldn't destroy the printout. You could build golf courses, but you couldn't unbuild the mystery. Somewhere in the constellation Sagittarius, 200 light-years from Earth, there's a point in space that looks like nothing special. No unusual stars, no exotic phenomena, no cosmic landmarks, just empty space between the stars, dark and quiet and vast. But this ordinary patch of nothing is the most important coordinate in human history, because for 72 seconds in 1977, something there acknowledged our existence, or didn't. That's the beautiful, terrible thing about the wow signal. It exists in a quantum state of meaning, simultaneously proof of cosmic intelligence and proof of cosmic indifference. It's Schrödinger's message. Until we detect it again, it's both alien contact and equipment glitch, both hello and goodbye, both everything and nothing. Modern telescopes continue the search with technology that would seem like magic to the Big Ear generation. The Chinese Fast Telescope can detect signals 10 times fainter than Arecibo could. The square-kilometre array, when completed, will have the collecting area of 200 football fields. We're building ears large enough to hear whispers from across the galaxy. But we're also running out of time. And I don't mean cosmic time. The universe has billions of years left. Human time. The radio spectrum is getting noisy. Satellites fill orbital space like locusts. Cell phone towers broadcast their digital chatter. Wi-Fi networks create an electromagnetic fog. We're slowly deafening ourselves to the cosmos, filling the airways with our own noise until we can't hear if anyone else is speaking. The wow. Signal came at the perfect moment, late enough that we had the technology to detect it, early enough that the radio spectrum was still relatively quiet. A few decades earlier, and Big Ear wouldn't have existed. A few decades later, and the signal might have been lost in the noise of our own civilization. Jerry Amon is often asked if he believes the signal was alien. His answer never changes. I don't know. 3 words that contain more scientific integrity than 1,000 speculative documentaries. He saw something. He recorded it. He reported it. Everything else is interpretation, hope, fear, wonder, human emotions painted onto cosmic indifference. The signal remains in a filing cabinet at the Ohio History Center. 6 characters on computer paper, fading slowly as the years pass. 6 EQUJ5, a sequence that might represent humanity's first contact with cosmic intelligence, or might represent nothing at all. The ink is getting lighter. The paper is becoming brittle. Eventually, even this physical evidence will crumble to dust. But the question will remain. It has to. Because the alternative, accepting that we're alone in a universe of 400 billion galaxies, is too vast and terrible to contemplate. So we keep listening. New telescopes, new frequencies, new search strategies. Somewhere out there, the thinking goes, someone is broadcasting. We just have to be listening at the right time, at the right frequency, with the right equipment. The universe doesn't care about our search. It doesn't care that we demolished Big Ear for a golf course. It doesn't care that Jerry Amon is running out of time to see his discovery explained. The cosmos operates on scales that make human lifespans look like sparks. Brief, bright, and quickly extinguished. But maybe that's the real gift of the wow signal. It reminds us that we're part of something larger, that our small planet orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable galaxy is still connected to the cosmic conversation. For 72 seconds, we heard something, or thought we did, or wanted to. The uncertainty is what makes us human, the ability to wonder, to question, to search for meaning in 6 characters on a fading printout. Every night, radio telescopes around the world turn toward the sky. Their operators know the odds. Space is vast. Time is deep. The chances of 2 civilizations broadcasting at each other at exactly the right moment across exactly the right distance is infinitesimal. But infinitesimal isn't 0. And as long as it's not 0, we'll keep listening. Because somewhere in the direction of Sagittarius, something happened. Something spoke or shouted or whispered or accidentally leaked across the cosmic dark. And we heard it. Once. For 72 seconds. A reminder that the universe might be stranger, more wonderful, more populated than we dare imagine. The search continues. Because the alternative, giving up, accepting silence, building golf courses where telescopes should stand, is a failure of imagination. The wow. Signal taught us that the universe can surprise us, that our assumptions about cosmic loneliness might be wrong, that at any moment, on any frequency, from any direction, another signal might arrive. And if it does, we'll be listening. Despite the noise, despite the cost, despite the giggle factor and the golf courses and the growing suspicion that we might be shouting into an empty room, we'll be listening because that's what curious species do. They wonder, they search, they refuse to accept that 6 characters on a printout represent the only time the universe acknowledged their existence. The cosmos is vast and old and mostly silent, but mostly isn't always. Sometimes, for 72 seconds on an August night, something breaks the silence. something says wow. And until we know what or why or who, we'll keep our ears pressed against the cosmic dark, waiting for the universe to speak again. Because the alternative, accepting that it won't, is too lonely to bear. Sleep well, knowing that somewhere someone is listening, always listening, waiting for the next wow.